Without safety, everything else becomes chaos. When a person has lost their sense of safety, like all higher functioning, it starts to experience severe glitches, like starts crumbling. It becomes very difficult to do anything like that because it's like you're constantly going through hostile situations. And it would be like the adrenaline spike of somebody starting a fight with you or like slamming something down right next to your head. Like, that's the kind of like spike in adrenaline that happens for seemingly no reason or because of like, intrusive thoughts that you can't control. So it's difficult to like keep a train of thought. Now, I never knew that this was what one of the things I was missing because it had been taken from me at a very young age. So I spent most of my life unable to verbalize or even like visualize, think of like safety as a thing because it was never there in my life. So like when it's not there, like I would have considered safety like in quite literally a physical sense, like am I in immediate danger, is anyone going to attack me? But that's not what it really means, and I didn't know this, and like only very very recently have I even become aware of it, and like because I started watching for it, and I started to suspect something when I was talking to somebody, and I was like, when you go to work, you don't even think about the fact that you might have to fight somebody or you might get into a fight and die or kill someone on the way to work. Like that never even enters your mind. You when you go out to your car, you get in your car and you drive to work, it never crosses your mind that like I might die. Like there might be a situation where I am murdered right now. Uh that doesn't enter your head, and like I couldn't believe that. I could not believe someone would go outside without thinking about death. Like, what world are you living in, quite frankly? But it was so common to me and had always been the way with me. So to think of any other way, it's it was inconceivable. It was just I I couldn't conceive of it. And very, very recently, I have started to feel like a sense of safety in home or at home. And I gotta tell you, it makes everything so much easier. Like the ability to carry on a train of thought and do something isn't like a constant test of will and forcing yourself back to the same thought because your thoughts, like, you have like violently intrusive thoughts that crush everything else in your head, and suddenly you're looking at all this horrible shit that you don't want to see. And so you have to push that back down and then be like, what was I thinking about, and be able to remember and go back to what you were thinking about. And then in a couple minutes the same thing will happen again, and we repeat this forever. It is a constant test of will, and some things I could do, but most things I couldn't. It was impossible. And I always used to laugh and say the line, I'm in an abusive relationship with life, and I just can't get it together to leave her. Um, like, the ability to get it together was something that I couldn't do. And I could never figure out why. Like, I wanted to. I had managed to quit doing drugs. I don't drink. I don't do any. I work out every day. Like, I eat healthy. But I still could never function in the world. And I could never crack that mystery. And I mean, there might be other steps to it, but like the sense of safety they have that Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and like safety is a big one. And it made me think of this because I said this the other day in a video when I was rambling about stuff, as I frequently am. But I had never really put it into words like that before, that without safety everything else is chaos. Like when you are not confident, when you don't have a surety that you are okay and going to be okay, the doing any higher functioning, it it's almost impossible. I'm not saying it can't be done, and there are people that are like conditioned from a very young age to do certain things and behave certain ways, and quite often they're going to have an easier time, just because like their brain can do it by going on autopilot is what I'm saying. Whatever your brain does when you go on autopilot is largely all you'll be capable of, and that's unfortunate. And I would always wonder why, like, what what's the problem here? And I spent a lot of time thinking about this and trying to figure it out. And at least one of the things that I have learned here is that safety is I didn't even know what it was, let alone have it. And I had spent a lifetime like looking for the things that I am missing. Like, why can't I do this? Why am I not like other people? Why can't I get it together? And like, I didn't feel safe. I was, in my mind, still under constant threat. Uh, Even if it was unlikely, it was still like incredibly more likely than other people's lives. And like that really, I find like surprising, that like people are so far away from like violence and cruelty. Like it's it's notional, like it's a hypothetical. It's not like concrete reality of like the everyday life. um I was watching this video, and I mean, granted, this kid must have been crazy, but like he's on LA public transportation, a bus, and like there's some younger black guy, like him and them are going back and forth, and the dude is straight up dressed in like a wizard robe and hat and trying to have a rap battle with this dude. I I cannot imagine like the sense of safety that kid must have felt. Like he must have never been like had that sense compromised before. And I mean, granted, in this case, it led him astray, and he probably shouldn't have been on transportation like that anyway. Like, I've been on a lot of buses in my day, and like a lot of bad stuff happens on buses. People are in a confined space. A lot of people that don't know each other. It's like a movie theater. Like some people in this room before this 2 hours is up, there's gonna be a fight. Uh, we can safely bet on that. Is it usually you? That's not important. That is not important. Uh, Movie theaters are like bars and clubs. They get a bunch of people together, and I don't know about the people in your world, but like that means there's gonna be a fight. If a bunch of people who don't know each other get together, uh, it's just a recipe for disaster. This is a powder keg waiting to go off. This has been my experience. This is what I expect. But I notice a lot of people don't expect that because they still do these things. And, I suppose there's some kind of like balance in this, but like in my life, like it was bereft of it. I didn't even know that I was missing it. And how do you put words to something you don't know? And having that conversation where I realized like other people don't constantly have that like readiness to them. There's not constant preparation for violence. uh, I was like, wow, like I couldn't imagine living that way. And it takes a lot of emotional energy and physical energy to stay in like a heightened state of readiness, especially because you don't sleep much. Like, not without some kind of medication, if you will. And I mean, when I was like 12 and 13, like that, I used to literally drink myself to sleep, or else I would stay awake for days and days. Without liquor, I could stay awake for 3 or 4 days easy. I stayed awake for over a week, an unfortunate amount of times. I'd rather not talk about it. I just prefer not to think about such things. Because I remember the first time I was awake for 7 days straight. And a lot of people say that. Like, a lot of people say I drank a 30 pack of beer. But if you're actually awake for a week straight, it changes you. Like, it does something to your brain. Um, and it's not good. It's not good. I remember I was hearing all kinds of stuff. Uh, I don't recall seeing a lot of stuff, but I was hearing a lot of stuff that wasn't there. For the last 2 days, I was hearing music that wasn't there. And I mean, hearing it, like I could hear it. I was certain I was hearing it. On the last day, my nose just started pouring blood for like 45 minutes, and it just couldn't be stopped. And I was just all the way down to my boots. I was covered in blood. Uh, I prefer not to think about what caused that. Just happy and not knowing, I suppose. But I don't get nosebleeds either. I'm not a person that gets them. I never have nosebleeds. It's just not something that happens in my life. So it's like poison ivy. People would be like, everyone's allergic to poison ivy. And I'm like, I'm not. And I just never was. I'm not saying I wouldn't be now, because apparently it changes. So I don't see a need to tempt fate. But my whole life, I was never allergic to poison ivy. But even with that, I still couldn't feel the sense of safety. And even with my immunity to poison ivy, I don't know why that got included, but this is why I often call it rambling. Um, but nevertheless, it is a decent message, like the idea of safety. And a lot of people who have had it their whole life can't imagine what it is to go without it. They don't see how destructive that would be, because just like me, where they can't conceive of it because they have never had it taken from them. And I have said this to people when I was frustrated with it. Like, I could teach you what it's like to not feel safety. And there's obviously an implication in there. But, like, even hearing that, it makes the person feel unsafe. Um, and obviously, that's kind of the point. But it's difficult for people who have always had it to imagine being without it. I guess that is what I'm ultimately trying to get to, and have taken this long, rambling course, as always, to arrive at. Which, and the, like myself, without having known it, like trying to conceive of this is what I'm missing is almost impossible. Um, and doing things productively when you don't feel it is almost impossible, and requires some kinds of self medication, something that changes your brain to think differently. Um, I see a lot of people use alcohol, and I did heavily when I was young, into my early 20s, when I found heroin. And, it was love at first sight. Um, and, you know, that went on until my late 20s, when I finally quit everything. But uh, Like I needed it, and I was willing to make the trade-off of what it took from me. Like it was a fair trade in my eyes. Like dealing with the withdrawals and stuff was a fair trade with dope, because with it I could do stuff. And so like if I can't do anything anyway, trading something where I can do stuff half the time and I'm just gonna feel like death the other half of the time, like at least I'm getting 50%. Like that's a pretty sweet deal in my eyes. So stuff like that, uh, it becomes necessary for the person because they can't fill in what they're missing. Or at least I suspect. I'm not saying all cases, but I've seen this several times with people that come back from the military and they have lost their sense of safety, and they can't quite put words to what it is. And I at least I know that's one of the things I see in other people quite often. Um, you know, something to think about. Take it for what it's worth, I guess.